Sri Lanka is on the cusp of a certainly interesting day in terms of its economic recovery, as the IMF Executive Board's decision is set to be announced later today. We have a comprehensive lineup of all of these stories and much more. Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst team. I am Jayamal Ratnayaka, and here are your headlines for tonight.
Will Sri Lanka get an IMF bailout package? IMF Executive Board to meet today. Decision on Tuesday morning. IMF package will include budgetary support to Sri Lanka's government, says Central Bank Governor. Local government institutions now under secretaries and commissioners. SLPP opposes decision. Former minister says election should be presidential or parliamentary. Uday Gamanpilla says president cannot call for early presidential poll. Egg shortage in Sri Lanka worsens as concerns mount over mafia operations. Court issues order preventing the digging of trenches. Xi Jinping and Putin meet in Moscow as Russia's war in Ukraine continues.
In a top story for tonight, Sri Lanka's Cabinet of Ministers have granted their approval in principle for the divestment of major shareholding in Lanka Hospitals Corporation PLC and Sri Lanka Telecom PLC.
Sri Lanka Telecom PLC, in a letter to the Colombo Stock Exchange, noted that the Treasury Secretary has informed the Board of Directors of SLT that the Cabinet of Ministers granted its approval in principle for the divestment of the state held by the Secretary to the Treasury in SLT. It added that the divestment will be implemented by the state-owned enterprise restructuring unit established under the Ministry of Finance. Lanka Hospitals Corporation PLC informed the Colombo Stock Exchange that the Secretary to the Treasury has conveyed that an approval in principle was granted by the Cabinet of Ministers for the divestment of the major shareholding in Lanka Hospitals Corporation PLC.
The Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund will meet later tonight to discuss the IMF-supported program for Sri Lanka for a $2.9 billion bailout package. The meeting will take place on Monday night Sri Lankan time, that is tonight, and the official announcement will be made on Tuesday morning.
On the 1st of September 2022, IMF staff and the Sri Lankan authorities reached a staff-level agreement to support Sri Lanka's economic policies with a 48-month arrangement under the extended fund facility of about $2.9 billion. Thereafter, the IMF paid a close watch on the multiple changes that need to be made to Sri Lanka's economy during the period that followed. After the staff-level agreement was reached, the key elements of the program are reforms making personal income tax more progressive and broadening the tax base for corporate income tax and VAT. The program aims to reach a primary surplus of 2.3% of GDP by 2025. Introducing cost recovery-based pricing for fuel and electricity to minimize fiscal risks arising from state-owned enterprises. Mitigating the impact of the current economic crisis on the poor and vulnerable by raising social spending and improving the coverage and targeting of social safety net programs. Stronger central bank autonomy that allows pursuing a flexible inflation targeting regime. Rebuilding foreign reserves through restoring a market-determined and flexible exchange rate supported by the comprehensive policy package under the program. Safeguarding financial stability by ensuring a healthy and adequately capitalized banking system and by upgrading financial sector safety nets and regulatory standards with a revised Banking Act. Reducing corruption vulnerabilities through improving fiscal transparency and public financial management, introducing a stronger anti-corruption legal framework and conducting an in-depth governance diagnostic. Reforms related to the aforementioned points were implemented in the recent past, and the Executive Board of the IMF will review the progress Sri Lanka has made in this regard. Xinhua, quoting Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, noted that the country's dollar crisis is over as the International Monetary Fund is set to approve a $2.9 billion bailout package for the country on Monday. The funds that will be made available to Sri Lanka under the extended fund facility will be released in tranches across 4 years following a review made every 6 months. Accordingly, after the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund grants approval, Sri Lanka will first receive $300 million. Can the IMF funds be used for budgetary needs? As per the statement issued by the IMF after the staff level agreement was reached, there is no mention of using the funds to meet Sri Lanka's budgetary needs. Xinhua, quoting Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, noted that the IMF package will include budgetary support to Sri Lanka's government, which is a new element in IMF lending. Executive Director of Veritay Research Dr. Nishan Dimel told Newsfirst that after the staff level agreement was reached, the Sri Lankan government has engaged in extensive discussions. He said that following discussions, an agreement was reached with the condition to use a portion of the funds for Sri Lanka's budgetary needs.
The IMF was established to help countries in balance of payments crisis. So it is specifically intended to help countries that fall into trouble in terms of international payments. We do somehow hear through unofficial sources that the IMF had said that given the special circumstances in Sri Lanka, they would consider releasing part of the money for budgetary support. We don't know how much of it or for what exact purpose this money will be used, but I have a feeling that it could be for social safety nets and cash transfers.
State Finance Minister Shehan Semasinghe said that the agreements reached with the IMF will be presented to the Parliament by the President this week.
After approval from the Executive Board of the IMF is given, the President, as the Finance Minister, will table the agreement in Parliament. When the sessions open on the 22nd, the agreement will be tabled. This is not the staff level agreement, but the final agreement approved by the Executive Board. The President promised to deliver it in Parliament.
The Committee on Public Finance, which was the centre of controversy in recent weeks, met once again on Monday under an acting chairman from the ruling faction. Opposition MP Mayantha Disanayake was initially appointed chair of COPF and he resigned, and the committee is yet to decide on reappointing Dr. Harsha De Silva as the chairman. When the Committee on Public Finance met on Monday, Trade Minister Nalin Fernando was appointed as acting chairman based on motions moved by MPs Mahindananda Alutgamage and Nimal Lanza. COPF had discussed the survey on providing social welfare benefits and will meet again on Tuesday afternoon to further deliberate on the matter. The Finance Minister, Department of Motor Traffic and the Ceylon Electricity Board will appear at COPF on Tuesday. MPs Nalin Fernando, Mahindananda Alutgamage, Madhura Vithana, Anupa Pascal, Dr. Suren Raghavan, Nimal Lanza, Patali Champika Ranavaka and Kavinda Jayawardena had attended Monday's meeting. However, MPs Vajira Abeyewardena, Chandimavira Kodi, Harshana Rajakaruna and ex-chairman Mayantha Disanayake and Dr. Harsha De Silva were not present. Dr. Harsha De Silva told Newsfirst that he will not attend COPF meetings until a decision is taken to appoint a chairman.
අපේ විපක්ෂයට විපක්ෂයේ මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙකුට අවස්ථාවක් තිබ්බා ඒකේ මුදල් කාරක සභාවේ සභාපති ධූරය අරන් වැඩ කටයුතු කරන්න සිළු දෙනාම එකතු කරාගෙන හැබැයි ඒ අවස්ථාව කරගාටුයි ගිහිලා තියෙනවා ඔච්චරයි බලපෑම් මොනවද නෑ බලපෑම් කියන්නේ දේශපාලන පක්ෂයක් තුල ඉන්නවා නම් ඒ පක්ෂයේ විනයක් තියෙනවා පක්ෂේ නායකයෙක් ඉන්නවා පක්ෂ නායකත්වයට මොනවා වුණත් ගරු කරන්න ඕනේ ඉතින් මම ඒ ගරුත්වය ලබා දීලා පක්ෂ නායකත්වයෙන් ඉල්ලීමක් කරාම මේක ඉල්ලා අස්සෙන්න කියලා මම ඒ ඉල්ලාසීම කරා
The Parliamentary Select Committee led by the Speaker should decide on the chairman of the Committee on Public Finance. The PSC will meet again on the 4th of April 2023.
Now, while the country awaits the IMF Executive Board's decision, several other issues are also still affecting the lives of ordinary Sri Lankans. What would happen to the local government institutions that ceased to function with effect from midnight yesterday? What is the status of the comments made to summon judges to the Parliament Committee on Privileges? Have the protests against tax amendments been called off? Here are the latest on these events.
Are the protests against tax amendments over? University teachers attached to the Trincomalee campus of the Eastern University of Sri Lanka engaged in a silent protest against unjust tax reforms.
We are not against paying taxes. However, taxes need to be fair. There needs to be development from the taxes that are collected. People need to benefit from that. We do not agree with taxes that burden the people. That is our message to the government. We are not against paying taxes. In fact, we are ready to pay taxes in a more reasonable manner. On the 22nd, there will be a meeting with the President. We hope to obtain a positive response.
The government threatened action against those engaged in strikes. But why did it abandon that move? It was because the strikes were a success. When talks were called for, the government said an opportunity will be given to discuss with the IMF. This is insane. The government must discuss with the IMF. The IMF is not a provider for those engaged in strikes to meet and discuss their issues. The government is trying to shy away from the IMF because it was subject to the conditions of the IMF. It had to increase rates, electricity tariff, fuel prices and so on. Statements from those engaged in strikes to meet with the IMF should be viewed as deception.
What is the status of the proposal presented to discuss the Supreme Court's interim order on the local government elections at the Parliamentary Privileges Committee? The General Meeting of Lawyers, a collective of several lawyers' associations, had organised a media briefing to discuss the matter.
In our opinion, none of the clauses in the schedule of the Act regarding the violation of the privileges of the Parliament have been violated. It is regretful to see such allegations being voiced. We still have not been made aware of which clause is being violated.
අද රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මොකද්ද කරේ? තමන්ගේ සිතැඟි ඉටු කරගන්න කකුල් මාට්ටු 9ක් දාලා. ඒ කකුල් මාට්ටු 9 ඇතුලේ මේ මැතිවරණය පවත්වන්නේ නැතුව හිටියා. මොකද්ද හේතුව?
Ranil Wickremesinghe made 9 tackles to ensure the election is not held because the situation isn't favouring him. His decisions are so arbitrary that they have given rise to a dispute between the judiciary and the parliament. Judges are to be summoned to parliament committees because the executive's intentions were not fulfilled. A case being examined in court cannot be questioned or debated in parliament. This matter has been included as the 4th point of the agenda of the Parliamentary Ethics and Privileges Committee, which is to be held on the 23rd. This was a proposal by Premanath Sidolavatta. We will keep track of what happens on the 23rd, and at 12 noon on the 24th, the legal fraternity will stage a massive protest opposite the Halsdorf court complex.
යෝජනාව ලෙස දාලා තිනවා ප්‍රේමනාත් සිද්ධොලවත්තගේ යෝජනාව අපි කියනවා ඒක තියෙන්නේ 23 අපි 23 බලනවා මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ කියලා 24 වෙනිදා දවල් 12ට මේ සියලුම නීතිඥ සංගම් වල එකතුවෙන් 24 වෙනිදා දවල් 12ට අලුත් කඩේ උසාවි සංකීර්ණය අසල දැවැන්ත විරෝධතාවයක් පවත්වනවා
අපිට පේනවා දැන් කසකාරයෝ පෙරහැරේ ගමන් කරන්න පටන් ගන්න. ඒ නිසා ඒ කසකාරයෝ පෙරහැරේ එනකොට
This is just the beginning of the pageant. Based on this, we can predict how the end of the pageant would look like. Before it reaches that point, we would like to warn the government, do not play with fire. You are attempting to fiddle with the supreme law of the land and judges that form the legal system. Although those in parliament are ready to act on the president's orders, we are ready to rally against this attempt to influence the judiciary.
ජනාධිපතිවරයාට ඕන විදිහට පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉන්න උන්නැහැලා ටික නැටුවට මේ රටේ නීතිඥ ප්‍රජාව නීතිය කඩ කරන ඒත් සමගම ගරු අධිකරණයට අත තියෙන ඕනෑම මොහොතක ඒකට විරුද්ධව එක පෙළට හිට ගන්න සූදානමින් ඉන්නවා.
What will happen to the local government institutions? The official term of 340 local government institutions ended at midnight on Sunday. All administrative activities of these institutions will be handed over to the urban commissioners or secretaries. State Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Janaka Vakkumara said the Attorney General's recommendation on whether the tenure of the local government institutions will be extended is expected today. The tenure of 340 local government institutions lapsed on Sunday night, and the matter of extending the tenure was referred to the Attorney General.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna says that local government bodies should be administered by the representatives of the people.
Both the provincial councils and the local government institutions are indirectly under the control of the president from today. I think this situation should change immediately. If the government says that they do not have the money to hold this local government election, the government should find these funds as soon as possible and consider it as a priority to hold this local government election. We request the president to announce to this country when he will be able to provide the necessities for the election. We as the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna request that this election be held as soon as possible. Let institutions that function through public representatives operate in that manner.
වර්තමාන අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයා ඉවත් කරලා මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයා නැවත අග්‍රාමාත්‍ය ධූරයට පත් කරන්න යෝජනාවක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා කියලා ඔබතුමාලගේ පක්ෂ අභ්‍යන්තරයෙන් එහෙම සාකච්ඡාවක් වෙලා තියෙනවද?
No such discussions have taken place. The Prime Minister is working with us cooperatively. We have no problem with the Prime Minister and no such discussion has taken place. If we want to appoint Mahinda Rajapaksa as the Prime Minister, we can do it through the people of this country. Unlike others, we do not need to create conspiracies by writing letters for the Prime Minister or President to resign. The people of this country, even to this date, love Mahinda Rajapaksa. If we want to make Mahinda Rajapaksa the Prime Minister, we can do it easily. But it should be clear that no such discussion has taken place so far.
The Freedom People's Alliance told reporters that opposition parties are preparing to take legal action against the Treasury Secretary for failing to release funds for the local government election as per court order.
All the parties comprising the opposition in the Sri Lankan Parliament have made a collective decision to embark on a course of action. If within 7 days the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance does not comply with the order of the Supreme Court, the entire opposition in unison will approach the Supreme Court with a request that appropriate action be taken to enforce the interim order of the Supreme Court. In other words, to deal with the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance on the footing that he is guilty of contempt of court. He has deliberately disregarded an order given by the Supreme Court. He had not complied with it. And the failure of compliance on his part has entailed the very serious consequence that the suffrage of the Sri Lankan people has been infringed by the inability to hold these elections. It is not usual for all the different groups in the opposition to come together on a matter. Naturally, there are divergences of opinion. But having regard to the gravity of this matter and the extreme danger of allowing this to be established as a precedent, the calamitous consequences that can flow from the entrenchment of such a precedent in our country, going far beyond the domain of local elections and extending well into the sphere of presidential elections, which are due to be held next year, and parliamentary elections, which can be held at any time. So having regard to the ramification, the very disquieting implication of this precedent, the entire opposition has resolved that if the Finance Secretary does not act in compliance with the interim order of the Supreme Court within a stipulated period. 1 week is a very reasonable period. If it does not happen, then all of us, the entire opposition, will deferentially request the Supreme Court to take action against the Finance Secretary on the basis of a contempt of the Supreme Court.
Former Minister Navin Divisavia said the next election should be either a parliamentary election or a presidential election. He was speaking at the memorial organised in remembrance of the late Gamini Divisavia.
I believe the next election should be parliamentary or presidential. Other elections are unnecessary. The people also want an election that can change a government. MP Udaya Gamampila says the president does not have the power to call for an early presidential election.
According to Article 31A, 3A of our Constitution, a president can declare a presidential election after completion of 4 years in his first term if he intends to contest. Accordingly, if president, however, sub-article E of the same article says the president who was not elected by the people doesn't have this opportunity.
The availability of eggs in the local market has taken a hit once more. More news on this story after this short commercial break.
News First, main sponsor.
23% for 2 months, 25% for 4 months. Valuable FD. A trusted place for your fixed deposit. Valuable FD. 23% for 2 months, 25% for 4 months. Valuable FD, a symbol of stability.
Welcome back to the news. A shortage of eggs is once again being reported from the local market. Here is a look at the present situation. The Sri Lankan government decided to impose a control price on eggs as prices skyrocketed by 121% compared to December the previous year. The current control price for a white egg is 44 rupees. A brown egg can be sold for 46 rupees as per the government's control price. The government repeatedly announced that eggs will be imported from India. However, these shipments are yet to arrive. Against such a backdrop, a shortage of eggs has once again arisen in the local market. Egg stalls at the Narayampita Dedicated Economic Centre were closed on Monday.
bittara nෑ මාත්‍යෝ මේමයි ඉස්සර bittara කෑවා කටු කෑවේ නෑ දැන් කටු කනවා දැන් bittara කන්න නෑ කොරෝනාවෙන් කප්පම් ගත්තු මිනිස්සුනේ ඉන්නේ ඉන්ජෙක්ෂන් වලින් කප්පම් ගත්තු මිනිස්සුනේ මේ ඉන්නේ ඒ වගේ දැන් bittara ගෙනල්ලත් ඒ bittara වලින් කප්පම් ගන්න දෙන්නේ මේ හාණ්ඩුව විසින් තමයි මේක bittara හිඟේ නැතේ කරේ
පාලකයෝ ඇවිල්ලා bittara මාෆියාවක් ඇති කළා ළමයිට අඩුම පෝෂණය අපි දෙන්න හිටියේ bitterෙන් දැන් bitterෙත් නෑ ඉන්දියාවෙන් ගෙන්නනවා කිව්වා අරෙන් ගෙන්නනවා කිව්වා මෙහෙන් ගෙන්නනවා කිව්වා තියෙන එකක් නැති වුණා.
Eggs were not sold in other areas of the country as well. At some locations, traders were seen selling packages of 5 to 10 eggs in each pack with a price tag of 55 rupees per egg. According to retailers, producers are not providing them with eggs with prices less than the government's control price, and thus they too cannot sell eggs at the fixed price.
ඉල්ලන් එනවා නමුත් ඉතින් අපිට දෙන්න විතර නෑ මොකද පාලන මිලක් දාලා තියෙනවා ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන කාණ්ඩ අපිට දෙන්න විදියක් නෑ විකුණන්න ඕනේ දර විතරයි මාසේ ගේන්න මේ විශ්වාස කරන්න ඇවිල්ලා
44ට විකුණන්න කියන්නේ 44 ගේන්නත් බෑ ලක්ෂ ගණන් දඩ ගහනවා ඉතින් මේ රුපියල් 4කට 2කට කරන්න ඇවිල්ලා මිනිසුන්ගේ කඩේ විකත් බෑ ඒ දඩේ ගෙව ගන්න.
රජයේ පාලන මිලක් දානවා නම් ඒ මිලට විතර ලබා ගන්න ක්‍රමවේදකුත් හදන්න ඕනේ. මේ වෙනකොට රුපියල් 55යි 58යි ඒ වගේ මිලකට තමයි යන්නේ.
වැඩි මිලට අපි අල්ලගෙන ගිහින් දඩ ගහනවා. ලස්ස ගණන් දඩ ගෙවන්න බෑනේ රුපියලක් දෙකක් තියාගෙන. ඒකින්ද බිත්තර විකුණන්නේ.
The All Ceylon Egg Producers Association says the control price as well as bakery owners amassing stocks had led to a shortage of eggs in the country.
Because the festive season is ahead, bakery owners visit farms and take away massive stocks of eggs. By the 30th, bakery owners will stop purchasing eggs. Main reason is the shortage of eggs with retailers. The egg is priced at 40 rupees, but you cannot sell it for 45 rupees. Therefore, the retailer is no longer buying eggs from us. Eggs are also being sold like drugs. If there is a proper supply for the demand, an egg can be sold for 35 rupees.
However, the chairman of the All Ceylon Bakery Owners Association said that an egg cannot be stored for more than 10 days. He said the statement made by the All Ceylon Egg Producers Association claiming that bakery owners are amassing eggs cannot be accepted.
A warning was given some 6 or 7 months ago. However, the Egg Producers Association misled the Parliament and the people. They said in December that there will be no egg shortage and that by March, eggs can be sold for 35 rupees. While there is a shortage, there is no proper control on the prices. Although the Consumer Affairs Authority declared a price, eggs cannot be sold for those prices. The production cost is less than 20 rupees per egg. However, an egg that can be sold for 20 rupees is being sold for 55 rupees. They claim that the small-time producers will be protected, but what they did was sell the limited stock of the mass producers to the people and looted the people's money. We understand the urge for a minister to take control of egg imports. He prefers to import eggs to enjoy commissions. They are engaged in a triple game. They are ruining local production, importing eggs and then obtaining commissions. In order to please the ministers, we will have to import eggs forever.
Newsfirst made several attempts to contact Trade Minister Nalin Fernando, but those attempts proved futile. Yet, Trade Secretary M.B. Atapattu told Newsfirst that a control price was imposed after adding 5 rupees of profit for the producers and an additional 9 rupees to cover other costs. He said that at present, producers are operating in a manner to make massive profits deviously due to the high demand for eggs during the festive season. Employees of the Sevanagala sugar factory protested today, alleging that the sugar factory that was taken under the government through the legislation for the revival of underperforming enterprises or underutilized assets is being handed over to the private sector.
The combined trade unions at the Savanagala sugar factory protested by blocking the main entrance to the factory. They demanded the authorities to not hand over the already profit-making Savanagala sugar factory to the private sector.
We got to know this morning that they are preparing to sell this factory. The Secretary of the Treasury wants to make the sale. Even if they kill each one of us, we will not hand this over. The minister doesn't know. The cabinet doesn't know. He is preparing to give this to the Agamage who once operated this factory. He made these employees suffer. 350 million rupees of his loans have been stalled as of now, which means he has proven himself to be a failed businessman. They have made 2,500 million rupees in profit. We have doubts as to why they are expecting to hand over this factory that makes so much profit and is situated in an area like this. There is no need to privatize this at all. If they do that, lives of thousands of people will be affected.
The group protested for about 2 hours and then dispersed.
Sri Lanka's Supreme Court issued an interim injunction today suspending the decision taken by the former Wildlife Minister and officials to dig trenches in reservation areas as a solution to the human-elephant conflict. The order was made by Justices S. Raja, Janak De Silva and Achala Vengapuli.
Sri Lanka's Supreme Court on Monday issued an interim injunction after granting leave to proceed with the application filed by the Centre for Environmental Justice and another party. Attorney Ravindranath Dabare, who appeared for the petitioner, the Centre for Environmental Justice, pointed out in court that the digging of elephant trenches is taking place in total violation of the existing laws of the country. The examination of the application will commence on the 22nd of September 2023.
The foundation stone for a new building at the Bibila Madagama Aluthwala Primary School was placed earlier today to mark the 55th birthday of Venerable Dr. Kirinde Assajithera, the chief incumbent of the Hunupitiya Gangaramaya Temple.
School students were gifted with books and stationery items to mark the occasion. Dry rations, plants and agricultural equipment were also distributed to the Aluthwala village.
If you are getting a benefit, it should be given priority. These donors came this far because of the trust they have towards us. We are not going to conduct this only a day. We are going to do this in various places on various days, focusing special days.
According to the World Food Programme, food insecurity remains at concerning levels in the face of Sri Lanka's economic crisis.
According to World Food Programme's latest Household Food Security Survey for February 2023, 32% of households are food insecure. According to the World Food Programme's Market Functionality Index, markets continued to report concerns around price volatility in January. However, markets remain functional and currently have a wide range of products, adequate physical availability of essential goods and a resilient supply chain. WFP plans to assist 3.4 million people through general food distribution, school meals and nutrition support.
Today marked day 3 of the 4th phase of the LOLC Divisavia program, a community upliftment initiative aiming to empower our own citizens. Today's program centered around the Kegol district. Exercise books and other stationery are distributed among school children under the Divisavia program. This initiative is a collaboration between the LOLC group and the Ministry of Education. Earlier today, school books and stationery were distributed to students attending the Mangalagama and Galpula primary schools falling under the purview of the Mavanella Education Zone in the Kegol district. More school books and stationery were distributed to children at schools coming under the Mavanella Education Zone by another team of LOLC Divisavia. Students of the Boyagoda Primary School in Kegol also received new school books and other items as part of the Divisavia program.
First with the people.
Many countries around the world have opened up rage rooms as a means of coping with situations, and Sri Lanka too now has its first ever rage room. This is a report on it filed by Newsfirst's Teruni Karunaratna.
What you're about to witness is one of the latest additions to recreational activities here in Sri Lanka. I'm at Sri Lanka's first ever rage room, where you can de-stress, unwind, have fun and break things. Let's go in and see what they have to offer. The impact of the pandemic and the country's situation could be the reason for a rise in alternative rage therapy practices. Rage therapy is known to be a temporary method of releasing built-up anger and not a method of solving the underlying cause. It involves a space stocked with breakable items and tools for you to break them with. Before entering a rage room, one must don protective gear such as helmets and gloves and follow safety instructions. Although the concept of rage rooms is brand new to Sri Lanka, it has been around for years in countries such as Japan, Argentina, the United States and the United Kingdom. People who visited the rage room had the following to say.
Good exercise. This is like working out while releasing stress. Why not break a few more bottles while you're at it, right? So
in this time of need, this desperate times in our country, in our situation these days, this is something I feel everyone really needs to try out. It's releasing, it's relaxing, and yeah, I'll definitely be back.
This is what the founder of the rage room had to say.
We need something fun. I mean, something new in this country. So I thought, why not try bringing this concept down to Sri Lanka and start it here? And also, it's good for the economy because we want to introduce new markets to the economy, and it helps people who are unable to stress their emotions out or to express them come and be in a safe, non-judgmental area to have fun and just let it all out.
Introducing to you the latest stress relieving trend in town, I'm Teruni Karunaratna reporting for Newsfirst.
As the Russo-Ukrainian war wages on, Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in Russia on Monday on his first state visit to the country since Russia invaded Ukraine last year. Over 250 female athletes arrived in Sri Lanka for the challenging Raid Amazons adventure event that will take place in Kandy.
The all-female athlete contingent that will take part in the Raid Amazons adventure were welcomed at the Bandaranaike International Airport by Sri Lankan Airlines, who flew then from France to Colombo.
It's the country I've always wanted to visit, or I would like to discover your beautiful country, and we are going to the region of Kandy. We'll see, it will be a surprise.
Following a welcome ceremony, the group was taken by train to the hill capital Kandy, giving them an opportunity to enjoy the transition from urban to green surroundings.
Thank you, Sri Lanka. We're very happy to be here. Thank you. It's amazing.
Raid Amazons is a coveted annual destination adventure event originating from France, which features female athletes competing their way through a range of challenges such as orienteering, mountain biking, canoeing, riding, running and archery.
With this Raid Amazon coming, we'll be spending 9 days in Kandy. It will be a great eye-opener to all tourists and travel agents that Kandy is not a one-night city, but where guests can stay for 3 nights. Kandy will be a happening place, and we are trying to make Kandy the visit city in Sri Lanka. It's a great event for Kandy, and you can showcase the world that Kandy is ready for tourism and Sri Lanka is ready to open to the world, and there is no problems in Sri Lanka. So please, people out there, come to Sri Lanka, help the nation, because we were in a crisis, but as Sri Lanka is a resident country, we are bouncing back.
These tourists are showing an extraordinary amount of enthusiasm to tour this historic city. The Sri Lanka police has also made sure that police security is provided to all areas that they will be travelling to and to the hotels as well. In case of any complaints, we have teams prepared to deliver a prompt response. Apart from this team, even as of now, around 1,000 travellers are currently lodging in hotels around Kandy.
Sri Lanka was chosen over rival destinations by the event's founders due to the unparalleled warmth of its people and support on ground to pull off a successful event. Raid Amazons will especially help create more awareness of Sri Lanka as an adventure travel hotspot in France and the rest of Europe, where Raid Amazons is sought after and attract adventure seekers. Upon their arrival, the group was taken to their respective accommodation aboard Sri Lanka's iconic SLPP passenger service buses. Following the medical tests, the group will start their adventure from Hantana on Wednesday morning.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For Newsfirst team, I'm Damal. Take care, stay safe and have yourselves a good night.